Welcome to The Move In, a senior living marketing podcast from Unlock Health, a full service marketing partner for the aging services industry. Join us for candid conversations exploring the latest marketing strategies with the senior living community leaders and innovative solution partners who are moving our industry forward. Together, we'll build a community to build better communities. All right, we're on the Move In Senior Living Marketing, powered by Unlike Health. Larry Williams, the host of the Move In Senior Living Marketing, and we got a fun episode today. This is a fun reset episode of really bridging that gap from 2025 and going into 2026. We wanted to pause and reflect on what we learned in 2025 because those conversations are going to springboard us into 2026 and really help us focus on how we can improve this podcast and improve the content as we move into the new year. So I'll get into that in a second. But first, I want to start with how this podcast started, because I think that's really important to reflect upon. We at Unlock Health had a healthcare growth podcast, which I was fortunate to be the host of. And we decided to record a special mini podcast series at the 2024 Smash Conference. Well, after about 2 conversations there, I told my coworker and friend, Dave Growl, that this deserves its own space, that we need to have more of these conversations and people need to hear what these subject matter experts have to say. It's so many powerful conversations were had there. And so we jumped right in and launched a podcast at the beginning of 2025. And it was such a rewarding journey for myself. And I just want to tell this audience, thank you for joining me in this journey, and a huge thank you for all the guests who joined us last year. And when we reflected on those conversations we had last year, there were some topics that kept coming up, and as we reflect on where we've been and where senior living marketing sales is moving, we really wanted to highlight those specific topics. So, that being said, we wanted to let everyone know that we're breaking this podcast up into series. And so there's going to be 5 major series, which is it's going to start with data insights, then move into trust. And that series is going to be called Trust is the Currency. Then we're moving into empathy, curiosity, and value, then an alignment series, and then wrapping up again with the the conversations at the Smash conference. So I hope this audience appreciates, instead of having a lot of conversations, which I've heard a lot of positive feedback on, we really wanted to group these into these series because there's so much, I'd say, power within these conversations about these 5 different parts. One of our core values at Unlike Health is to never settle. And we want to take the same approach to this podcast. And so the one other change we're going to make is that we're shifting from weekly to bi-weekly. We really want to, value the quality over the quantity and value these conversations. That there's a lot of conversations I wanted to dig into deeper. And I think this is going to give us that chance to do so. So again, we're breaking this podcast into those series. Let's start with why we're breaking this podcast in these series and what that really means. So we're going to start with a data insights series. And one thing I realized is we have so much data. And I get to work with incredible channel partners. We're coming up with different data points, reviews, and different reports. And I thought it'd be good for us to start the year there. This is kind of that reset conversation where we get to reflect on the data points of 2025 as we move into 2026. And we're going to speak with CRM providers, some other channel partners. We're going to discuss some paid media conversations because we leverage so much data on that front. And I also get to talk about the Senior Living Marketing Survey report that Unlike Health co-sponsors and produces with the help of Senior Housing News. This series is going to allow us to really dig in deep on the data, but just as importantly, make sure we're not drowning in data, but really leveraging that knowledge of what that data is and how we can really learn from it and grow from it and make everyone better in the new year. The second series is Trust is the Currency. And When I reflect on 2025, say the word that kept really bubbling up was authenticity. I think that with AI, with so many different marketing strategies, people want to connect as humans. We want our marketing to connect as human as possible, and we need to make sure we're meeting our audience where they are in this journey and speaking on a more personal level. And so I'm excited about this series just because we're going to get to really focus on how do we develop that trust? How do we develop the trust in senior living marketing? How do we pull this information together so we can be the best guide that we can and really have start this journey with a very honest assessment and an honest conversation about who we are, who we're connecting with, and what value and service we provide to our community, to their residents, to their families, to everyone. So we're going to highlight a lot of social media resources, video resources, photography, and trusted online providers. Then after the trust series, we're going to move into more of the sales conversation. The sales component continued to have impact in a lot of the conversations we had in 2025. So we're going to transition into the empathy, curiosity, and value. And the reason that we labeled this series that is it's not really sales. It's really how do we provide value? How do we connect as humans? Same as we're talking about on the trust side, but we need to connect at a very empathetic level and have curiosity through that process. That kept coming up in a lot of the conversation. So we want to lean into that. And with senior living, sales and marketing being such a deeply emotional and complex journey, we thought it'd be good to bring in the best salespeople, those who can really present ways to connect at that human level to provide insights and how to continue to for us to show up our best selves and connect with people who really need to hear what we have to say. So then after that series, we're moving into really that alignment conversation because it's one thing to have the right marketing strategies. It's another thing to have the right conversations, as salespeople move from that marketing conversation into the tour and then connecting with potential residents and their families. But the big part of this that we need to continue to address is look, how does all this work together from the lead experience all the way through the move in as well as the living experience, and that's something that we may need to make sure we don't miss. And I appreciate the conversations that I had last year with leaders in the space of how we can make sure there is no misalignment and families can have that, I would say that seamless handoff, and that's going to not only help the resident and family experience, but also that's going to drive higher value for the culture and connect with their team. That's going to pay dividends in the long term. So we're going to move from that sales side into the alignment conversation after that, and we're going to have that conversation and really look at senior living marketing and sales as a larger view and bring in more of the conversations regarding the operations as well as the frontline uh, service providers. And then finally, as we wrap up the year, we're going to again record conversations at the Smash conference that will be held at the beginning of October in 2026. I always value the conversations I have at Smash. There's that theory that Smash is the Super Bowl of senior living marketing and sales, and I always enjoy getting people together and discussing what everyone is learning, what went well in the year, what they could have improved in the year. But it's always a good time to reflect on the year as well as move forward. So we will have a lot of we will host those conversations on site like we did in the past 2 years, and that's always a highlight of the year for me. So that being said, we want to really think about what we want to achieve in 2026. And when I think about what success looks like in 2026, I wrote an article about this, which we will include in the show notes. But the notes that I took as we wrapped up last year and went into the new year, which is, success in 2026 will be to those who use data wisely, build trust intentionally, lead with empathy, align teams clearly, and learn collaboratively. And so we ultimately want this podcast to really support this audience and all senior living sales and marketing professionals in this journey. So again, thank you to all who have listened in the past. I hope you stay with us in this year and really grow with us, grow with me, because it's been such an honor to be a part of these conversations, because I get to sit down and learn from all of these incredible leaders that I get to have these conversations with. Now, the first episode, it's going to be a level set episode. And I'm really excited about this conversation because I get to host my friend or podcast partner and the executive producer of the Marketing Podcast Network, Jason Falls, to join us. So Jason reached out to me a few months ago and told me, it kind of gave me a heads up about his journey of finding the right community for his father. And he kind of gave me a little insight to the highs and lows of that journey. And I thought this would be a fun level set conversation to bring him in and understand what that journey looked like for him. I want to I want the audience to hear directly from someone who's gone through this and got to experience it firsthand what this was like and how the process could have been improved, what his reflections are. Jason's going to be able to provide us that first person account of this journey. I think that's going to be a good way just to launch 2026 and all conversations that happen after. So that conversation is going to be next up in the queue for this podcast. And as we go through this, please reach out to us. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, how we can improve. And we want to make sure we're serving this community to the best of our ability. And other things we're looking to this year is more social media presence outside of LinkedIn. We like to have more shorter conversations that might not go on the podcast, but will go on the LinkedIn page as well as other social media feeds. And again, it's just getting everyone to be on the same page as we continue to grow together. So again, thank you for being on this journey with us, and we look forward to all the conversations this year.